Man, this is good B-roll. This is definitely good B-roll. I don't know why I'm starstruck, guys. Like, I've interviewed a lot of people over the course of my career, but I think you're the most beautiful person that I've interviewed thus far.
Oh, thank you.
So let me do my intro, because apparently I'm going to be auditioning to, jump into the pro wrestling world. I'm a lifelong fan, just so you guys know. I always tell talent this, right? I always tell talent that if you walk, talk, and look like $1 million, then you're $1 million. But in this case, because we're using a pro wrestling analogy, if you wrestle like $1 million, you're $10 million. Well, my next guest is probably about $10 million, but the stock is rising right now. The stock is rising right now. You know what I mean? She is the one, the only. She's a third generation superstar. She's trailblazing right now. She's La Única. Tessa Blanchard, how you doing today? Undeniable, by the way.
Undeniable. Thank you for having me.
How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. We're just a few days away from big, hard to kill Sunday, so trying to stay focused, trying not to let nerves get the best of me, but it's good.
Speaking of hard to kill, so here's what's going down this Sunday. Dallas, Texas, the Bomb Factory. You are going to make history, or you are going to attempt to make history, and you are going up against Sami Callihan for the Impact World Championship. Man, this is big. It's never been done before, correct? Like ever on any promotion.
No, it's big. It feels special. I think that's why I'm trying to stay so focused, is because ever since I started wrestling, I've always said that I want to make history in a way that's unique to me and unique to the business, because in 2020 and 2019, there's the first women's this and the first women's this, and women have such a platform right now, and it's so great. But for a little bit, I think I was like, oh man, I want to be a part of the first this and the first this. And,
yeah, for sure.
But I was like, you know what? Screw that. I want to make history in my own way, in a way that's unique to me and that's different. And I feel like Impact is giving us that platform.
Absolutely. Well, and we'll get back to that in just 1 second. But how do you prepare for a match like this? I think that's the question for me. Knowing that you have so much on the line, knowing that you're going up against a man, you know what I mean? Like, and to the casual fans, like, that's unheard of, at least for the main title. I know people talked about, like, China broke barriers by, going up for the Intercontinental title or whatever the case may be, or I think she may have held a few other titles, but never the main title. Like, how do you prepare for that?
If you would have asked me a few years ago, or even when I started with Impact, if I would be in the position I am right now, or if I'd even be living the life that I'm living right now, I'd probably have a whole different answer for you. But it feels right, and it's all happened very organically. I think when things are supposed to be right, or things happen for the right reasons at the right time, that it does. It's just easy, and it happens organically. And I don't really look at it like intergender wrestling. I kind of look at it as pro wrestling,
right.
Like altogether. I started wrestling with the guys. I started fighting the guys. Cedric Alexander and I would be in the ring for 6-7 days a week from 6 p.m. until 2 or 3 in the morning, just going. Just because my vision, I've always wanted to be great. I don't want to be good. I don't want to be passable. I want to be one of the best in the world.
And you know what? That's what I love about you the most. I've studied your story, and we're going to tell your story. The amount of self-belief that you have in yourself is something that I can relate to. And I think whenever you have that type of self-belief in yourself, it can make people feel uncomfortable. And I think in a sense, to get to that next level, to break through, you have to be a little disruptive. And you got to do things that haven't been done, and quite frankly, things that other people can't do. And so with that being said, I've seen endless interviews on you where you're like, hey, man, if I'm going to go wait tables, I'm going to be the best at waiting tables. So when I see you right now in the position that you're in, I admire it, because I think with Impact Wrestling in specific, I think it was your decision to go to Impact Wrestling. And I think it's a classic case of you could have been part of a puzzle, or you could have been the puzzle. And I feel right now you are the puzzle. How does that feel? And kind of piggyback on what I just said as far as that is concerned.
Early on in my career, I had opportunities, and I thought my path was going to go a different way. And I was jet set on it. I thought, you know what? My ducks are in a row. This is the way it's going to happen. And everything kind of took a turn, and things just started surprising me even. My decision to go to Impact was basically on a gut feeling. I was like, you know what? it feels good here. Like it feels right. Let's try it. And Brian Cage and Moose are two of my best friends in the business, and they were both in my ear like, come on. But it just felt right. And I don't regret my decision. And honestly, it's been the resources that Impact provides us with, as far as Gail Kim, Jimmy Jacobs, Tommy Dreamer, Rhino. I can go and I can talk to them, and they've been where I am now, and they've walked this path, and they've lived it. So I can go to them, and I'll forever be a student of the game. So I like to pick their brains and try to take myself to the next level always.
And I feel like your stock has gone up since being with Impact, and I think that's just attributed to the fact that, like I said, you're not part of just the puzzle. You are the puzzle. And I feel that Impact is giving you that respect. As a performer, obviously, you're still getting better. You're only 24 years old. You're evolving. And I think with that being said, as it's happening, and here's the thing. You have all these major promotions on the pro wrestling side. Obviously, for fans that are aware of them, they know who they are. But you take the Impact Wrestling, the model that they've had some successful people come out of that whole system at one point. And I don't necessarily think you need the major promotions to elevate anymore. Obviously, your social media following is like 400,000 followers. And I think by this time next year, it'll probably be more than doubled, So I think what I'm trying to get to is now going into 2020, obviously there's big matches, coming up this weekend. You have potential to make history. Like you said, it's unique to you. You don't regret making this decision. You did it obviously for the right reasons, because it felt right. Like, where do you see all of this kind of going now? Like, in general, in terms of your career.
People ask me that, and I don't really have an exact answer. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what this year is gonna bring me. I don't know. I just don't know yet. Like we said before, no matter what I do, I give my whole self to it. Whether it's waiting tables, and I want to have the biggest section. I want to wait on 9 tables, and I want to, just knock it out of the park. Whether it's, in the gym, I want to challenge myself to be the hardest worker in the room and be in the best shape that I can be. And, now with wrestling, I don't mind starting at the bottom, but you can bet your ass that I'm going to work my ass off until I get to the top. And, when I came to Impact, I did have to work up, and it's all led us to this Sunday. And sometimes I have to take a step back and just enjoy the journey too, because I don't know what's going to happen. And I see so many people that they say it'll never happen to them, but the money and the fame, it changes them sometimes. And I never want that to happen to me. I kind of like to remind myself to keep a balance, so that way I don't get too carried away with myself. Just pay attention to what's real in life, and then also have those goals, fight for them. I've always wanted to set goals for myself that no female athlete has ever accomplished. And that's what I'm doing this Sunday. I'm going after something that no one's ever accomplished, but it's important to keep that balance too.
Absolutely. And let's go to the beginning. So as at least from what I've read, the story has been told that you didn't have aspirations initially to get into the business.
Oh, no, not at all.
So it's kind of like, classic case, you didn't choose the business probably chose you. But in this case, 2012, if I'm not mistaken, your father, part of the original Four Horsemen, got inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
You were there. And if I'm not mistaken, is that where the bug bit you?
I think so. Me, my brother, my 2 sisters went to Miami with my dad, and they were super interested they want to try these restaurants or go to the beach or, enjoy Miami. And I was like, Dad, can I wake up at 5 a.m. and go to the radio interviews with you and Arn? And I just wanted to go and be around it. And we were on a private floor of the hotel, which was reserved for the roster and whatnot. It was their congregating area, and just being around that and seeing that, it fascinated me. And I was young and I loved it. I loved being around it.
I actually went back, watched it a couple of days ago just to see his part of the induction. And whenever he was obviously acknowledging you and acknowledging your siblings, I was like, oh my gosh, she looks like 13 there, you know?
I was so young. I think I wore my homecoming dress from high school there. Like, I'm so young. I was just so excited. And I loved it. And I was so proud of my dad, too. I don't think I really grasped how big of a star he was and how big the Four Horsemen were until we were there and we get off the bus at the American Airlines Arena and all the fans are like, Tolly, Tolly. And I'm like, oh, this is crazy. This is awesome.
And then, so what happens from there is, and correct me if I'm wrong, some time passes and then you decide to get into pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. Not one relative knows. And at the time, from what I've gathered, you kept it a secret, but at the same time, you weren't talking to anybody during that time frame.
Yeah, when I turned 18, I got kicked out of my house. We just had like a lot of family stuff going on.
You were 18.
It happens to everyone. But I think the problems were more at home, and it was just better for me to not be in the equation at the time. So I remember I found an apartment in downtown Charlotte. I was able to take my mattress, my nightstand, and and my clothes, obviously. But I lived on my own for a year, and I had to figure it out. I woke up one day, and my phone didn't work. My parents cut my phone bill off. I had no money at the time. Gosh, I was working like paycheck to paycheck. I had to figure it out, and I think that was a huge growing process too. Like you struggle and you figure out who you are, and you just figure it out. Yeah. You grow up. But I had a job in downtown Charlotte, and then I was hanging out with like some rough people. You know, we worked at the bar at the nightclub, and then you're up all night, sleep all day, wake up, do it again. And you know, it gets old. It gets so old. And I was like, what do you want to do with your life? And I was in college for a business degree in UNC Charlotte, and I don't know what it was, but something made me look up a wrestling school. And I found out High Spots was 20 minutes away for the time, and made a call and showed up a Tuesday night when they had classes. And Michael Bacucchio, I met him, who owns High Spots, and they took me to the back warehouse where classes were going on, and Cedric was getting ready, getting his shoes on, and Caleb Conley, some local talents were in the ring. George South was there, and I'm in high heels and not how you show up to wrestling school, so no one takes me seriously, obviously. They're probably just like, another wrestler's kid trying to wrestle. Yeah. But they let me get in the ring, and I bumped around a few times. I hit the ropes a few times, and I was like, God, this sucks, but I love it. I was like, this hurts so bad, but I love it. And I stuck with it. I was very prideful back then too, a stubborn kid, and I didn't talk to my family or like let them know that I was training, just stubborn and prideful.
I think I know why she was stubborn. Here's the thing. She's 19, 20 years old. There's nothing more damaging to a 20-year-old girl, may I add, at the female at the time, than to cut off their phone. That's like, that calls for war. Oh my gosh, why? Not just like, but you know what? So as the story goes, somewhere in the training process, they're like, you have to tell your family that you're wrestling. Because here's the thing we haven't touched on. Obviously, your father, Hall of Famer, wrestling royalty, Four Horsemen, Tessa Blanchard. Your stepfather is a pro wrestler as well, legend, Magnum PA, correct?
Magnum TA.
TA. Man, I'm sorry. Magnum TA. I completely butchered that. I apologize.
It's okay. We can edit it.
All right. Yeah. Magnum TA. And then you have your grandfather, who was also a pro wrestler.
Yes.
And so, obviously, you have a backstory. So your trainers tell you have to tell your family.
Yeah.
Well, I think they gave you like a grace period, like, okay, try it out if you stick around. But at some point or another, you're gonna have to tell them, right?
Yeah, we were in the ring. It was Cedric and I rolling around, and Michael comes to the back warehouse, pulls me out of the ring, and he was like, he said he had to talk to me. He was like, you can't train here anymore. And I'm like, what? Why? Like, I'm like, oh shit, what did I do? And he's like, no, I didn't know that your dad doesn't know you're training, and I know him, and this can cause problems. And I totally understood. And I was like, look, I'll handle it. Don't worry. And then I remember I called my stepdad too, and I told him that I was wrestling. I don't know if anyone really took me seriously, but the next Tuesday they didn't show up, but the Tuesday after that they did. And my stepdad came in with my little brother, And Cedric and I were in the ring. It was the middle of training. They came in, and this is the first time I'd seen them in like a year. And I was like, all right, Cedric, let's do our thing. Like, I've never been more comfortable in a ring with someone than I am with him. Like, we just knew each other so well, and we could, after a 4-hour training, we'd get in there and have a 45-minute to an hour match just for fun. Wow. Like, it was just, we just knew each other so well. I'd love to wrestle him as the person I am now. Yeah. Not 18-year-old Tessa.
You never know. Bookmark it.
But so we were done rolling around. My stepdad came up to the turnbuckle, and he was like, well, you're not good, but you have it. He said, now you have to go out there and you have to become undeniable. And that's where it comes from.
And that's where it comes from. And I've heard that story, and I think that the it factor, to me, stems from the self-belief that I feel that you have in yourself, and the fact that, yeah, you're right, you have to be undeniable, but I think that your persona, the way, like, I just sense that, that you believe in yourself.
Perception is reality.
Absolutely. So story goes on, you continue, and then you got on your indie grind, and you started going out there and just taking,
oh yeah,
hitting the road.
I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, so it was about a 6-hour drive, I think, to New Jersey, like 8 to New York, and then I think one of the furthest I did was like I drove 14 hours to Whitehall, New York, for like $100, slept in my car, turned around and drove right back. We had like I had the back seat of my car went down, and we put a big like bowl bed mattress in there, and me and my friend Chastity Taylor at the time, we would just like do all these road trips and then just sleep in the back of the car. And I remember we got a speeding ticket in Albany, New York one time, and the cop sees like the bed in the back, and he's like, are you girls okay?
Well, I mean, was it important for you to pay your dues on that level, just to kind of respect the grind of what it is to be a pro wrestler, and also not only that, but like to not feel like, because of your history and because of who your father was, you didn't want that perception of like, oh yeah, she's just getting an opportunity because of who her father was. Was it important for you to prove that and do that on your own?
Definitely. I think that, well, I didn't know much about the indies when I first started training. Like, I didn't know which were the top promotions and people might crucify me for it, but I just didn't. Yeah. I knew about WWE really and TNA, and I didn't know much about the indies. And I didn't anticipate how difficult locker rooms would be. Yeah. I shame on me for thinking everyone just gets along. But as I'm traveling and just showing up to shows, helping set up the rings and set up chairs and just doing everything I can to be around wrestling, I started to get opportunities on a few bigger named indies, and it was tough. Like, girls can be so mean sometimes. Yeah. I know, because I am one. No, but I remember it just, sometimes I would have people say like, oh, she only got this because of her name, or you're only here because of your name, or people would put the veteran treatment on me real hard, and it's fine. I've got extreme mental strength, and I can handle it. But like, it was hard. So I think that was one thing that motivated me, though, is because people were saying things like this, I was going to train extra hard. I was going to spend the extra hours. I was going to train and recover more than you so I could be the better athlete. And that way, whenever people made those statements, there was zero validity to it because I worked for it. Because I always say this, is my last name, it might get my foot in the door. It might get me in front of the right people. Hell, it might get me an opportunity. But the second I step in that ring, it doesn't do jack shit for me. Absolutely. It doesn't take the bumps for me. It doesn't drive the miles for me. It doesn't pay my freaking bills. So what?
No, and I respect that about you. And I think as it progressed, then you go on and I think you did you went to the NXT situation for a while, and then eventually you competed in the Mae Young Classic. I think coming out of that, everybody expected you to sign with WWE. I think that was like pretty much like what people assumed. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere in the middle of all of that going on, you had a conversation with William Regal, if I'm not mistaken, and he said, hey, if you don't get signed or if you don't whatever, will you still continue to do this? Was that correct? Yeah,
that was at my tryout in 2014.
Okay, so that's a little bit...
That was before,
yeah.
Okay,
so that was before, but I remember that, reading that, and I thought it was really interesting that you're like, absolutely. And he said, good, and because sometimes that's what it takes. I think that with talent, specifically in pro wrestling, and I've been a fan, lifelong fan. So, I do my research and I watch a lot. It's so interesting that a lot of the times when you see talent, everybody's always thinking about right now rather than the right time. And, Jericho, by the way, who I did an event with recently, Chris Jericho always says, like, WWE's never going nowhere. So they're going to be where they're at. That's just where they're at. They've established their footing in the industry. But I think it's important for pro wrestlers to go out and do their thing and prove themselves and set their value and become undeniable. And so you didn't sign with WWE. What happened directly after that? Did you just go back independent and then eventually you're with Impact?
I had my tryout. It didn't happen after that. And I thought damn sure it was going to. I was like, I knocked that tryout out of the park. It was one of the hardest Moose and I were actually at the same tryout, and Moose said that it was harder than any NFL camp he's ever done. I remember we were in the hotel one day and he just like passed out on the floor. But it was hard, and it didn't happen after that. And I was like, okay, keep your head up, right? And it was never signed to NXT, but I got pulled in for a few
there was like a few matches, right?
I think I did 3. And then they asked me to be a part of the Mae Young Classic, and I did, which was it was so special to me because Kyrie and I when we were in Japan, we were meant to have 2 different matches, and both times she got concussed before the match, and it never happened. So when they told us we got to wrestle each other, we both just started crying, and we were like, this is so special.
It was a great match, by the way. I went back and watched it. It was a great match.
Yeah. It was special. And I remember after the match, before the match, I think there was a few mind game type things that went on that kind of put me in a weird place, and maybe my stubbornness made me go and want to perform extra hard anyways. And then after the match, Terry Taylor was crying, and he said to me that he hadn't seen a performer make him feel emotion like that in a long time. And that stuck with me. And then Natalia and like the people were there like clapping and like shaking our hands. And I'm like, for sure something. And it didn't happen after that. And when I was living in Charlotte, I got called up to do a few NXT extra spots, and I drove the 8 hours to Orlando and turned around and drove the 8 hours right back home right after the show, only to have nothing quite a few times. And
weren't you like a rosebud with Becky Lynch one time?
Gosh, I just posted that. I think. I'm like, God, this picture's old.
Yeah.
Normally I'd bury it, but let's post it.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, oh man.
But I don't know. I think there's a lot of, this just goes back to you have to have extreme mental strength. Like, it's hard. You don't always hear yes. And sometimes when you do hear yes, maybe it's not the right decision at that very moment.
Correct.
It's tough. I've started to learn that I need to go with my gut, because sometimes I'll have a gut feeling about something, whether it be a match or something in the back. And if I don't listen to my gut, I go back and I'm like, damn it, Tessa, you should have. Because I was 100% right. Your gut will never prove you wrong. So with Impact, I had an opportunity I went to Moose's first pay-per-view to support him. He was my roommate in Orlando. And they asked me if I wanted to have a tryout match that week. And I kind of just decided against it, and I didn't. Maybe a few months later, they were in Orlando again at Universal, and they asked me to come, and I just decided to do it. I think because I was so set on what my path would be, and I didn't want to budge from what I thought my journey was going to be. And I just listened to my gut, and I did it, and it's probably one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Well, and I know that there was like rumors that went on that you had got removed out of like the Performance Center at one point.
Oh, it's
all bullshit.
It's all bullshit. People will make up
no
anything.
Mames.
No mames way.
No mames way. But and again, me kind of going back to the locker room conversation that you said, that shame on me for thinking that all the locker rooms were going to be friendly and people were going to be embracive. I attributed it possibly to the fact that, again, you have a certain level of self-belief. You believe in your talent. You perform like a confident talent, And as a result of that, people get uncomfortable when they know that you're just better than they are. I mean, it's just the truth. I mean, you're not going to say it. I'll say it for you.
I think that stems from people's own insecurities.
Absolutely. Though. But I mean, is that not something that you've seen in this business?
Yeah, I see people all the time, and I've dealt with it personally where people, if they don't believe in themselves 100%, they're going to find other reasons for why you're successful other than hard work. And they're going to pick at it. And no matter what you do, no matter where you go, someone's always going to have something to say. So am I going to sit here and bitch about it online or gripe about every little thing that happens or every move that someone steals from me and goes and does on Monday night? Yeah. No, I'm going to have the mental strength and know I'm creative and I'm fucking awesome. And I'm going to go and I'm going to find something else to do that's unique. And if you steal that too, cool. If you know what, it doesn't matter. It happens.
Yeah.
It's our business. But you've got to have the mental strength. And if you don't believe in yourself more than anything, then you're only going to get so far.
Absolutely. So then you go on Impact Wrestling. Then you end up having a program with Gail Kim, who, for the most part, for the better half of the past, 10 plus years, was the face of the women's division in Impact, the Knockouts division.
Before there was an Evolution, there was Gail Kim. That is the freaking truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you get her out of retirement. You guys have a match, and she passes the torch to you. How does that feel?
So there was like this, it wasn't even a joke. It was just like a running thing in the back where I'd be like, oh, Gail, it's going to be me and you one day. And just for like months, like this was just like something we said. And then never did I think that it would actually happen. I forget where we were, but I thought they were joking with me. They're like, oh, you and Gail are going to run a program. And I'm like, okay. Cool. But no, it actually happened. And I think we kicked it off in Vegas. It was the end of Taya and I's feud. And, I have so much respect for Gail just because when the women weren't looked at the way we are now, Gail was fighting for it to happen.
Absolutely.
She was always, even when I watch her and I's match, I watched it back not too long ago, and I'm like, she's fearless. She wants to be taken seriously, and she goes out there and she makes damn sure that she will be. Like she's just so damn good. And to be able to run a program with her, I feel like I learned more in that 10, 15 minutes than I have in most of my matches. She's a different type of athlete. And even though she came out of retirement, I feel like she could still go right now.
Oh, no, I think she proved that. I went back and I watched the match. I thought that was a great match. But now, as a result of that, you got the torch passed to you, yes. Carrying this, you're a face of the promotion. 2019 Impact Wrestler of the Year. 2019 Impact Match of the Year. And 2019 Impact Finisher of the Year as well, correct. Wow, you're just, you're sweeping the awards over there, I did want to ask a few things because they're giving us the hand signals. They're like, yeah, we're going too long. But check this out.
Buzzkill.
I don't know how to say it. I wanted to ask, saw your Instagram. I saw you quoted Hobson. I hear your theme song, Undeniable, has a little bit of a hip-hop flavor. Who's on your playlist? Who do you work out to? And are you a hip-hop head? Because that's what I'm getting from all of this,
Yo. Okay, so huge Hobson fan.
Okay.
I could probably right here, I could probably spit like Illmind 4 and 5 at least.
Ooh.
And then huge MGK fan.
Got you.
I got him when I work out, but also I love Jidenna. I don't know if you know Jidenna or not.
I know what Jidenna is.
I'm like a huge Jidenna fan.
That's awesome. Well, you know what? It's a pleasure having you here. We'll revisit soon, and we'll go another. I don't know however long we went, but I just wanted to really kind of tell that story. I'm a huge fan of yours.
Thank you.
I think that we're gonna look back in this interview 10 years from now, and I'm gonna be like, damn, I interviewed the absolute best pro wrestler in the world. I think you're seeing that come to life right now with the fanfare that you have and the amount of respect that you're getting across the board. And it's just a matter of time. Everybody's going to see it. And there's, I know that there's going to be fans that are going to be like, hey, you should ask her this and that about dream matches and, the matches that people clamor for. But I will say that there's certain people that I do feel that you are on a collision course to eventually face because of backstories. And with that, I'll leave you guys.
Woo! Woo!
Hey.